song.
New to me are everything, the sweetest song that I could sing, oh baby.
Except it's you to me, not new to me. But
do you know what? I never realised that, Kate.
And I found out that a stick of butter is 115 grams. So what...
I didn't like it. Oh, a squirrel! Look at him, he's got a nut. Sorry.
Welcome to Winter Watch.
Just a random butter fact for you there.
He's burying a nut.
He's using our lawn to bury his nuts.
In our front lawn.
Golden syrup. Oh, yum yum.
So up here, you do get a bit of pooling around the gusset because, you know.
Don't we all?
You usually do.
What are they called, these little bits, when you grate them? What are the little bits called?
And this is kind of what I need. Just stop.
I'm sorry. Stop.
Does that even have a name? Somebody come up with a name for the little bits of things when you grate them. Anyway.
Welcome, everybody, to the Bakery Bears video show featuring the very final episode of Kay's Classic Bakes.
Yes, indeed.
I can't quite believe it. What a series it's been.
Hasn't it?
Yorkshire curd tart.
Gosh, yes.
Of course, the wonderful individual lemon meringue pies.
Yeah.
And the star of the show so far was most definitely, do you all remember, the pillowy deliciousness that was the hot cross bun loaf. Whoops. That I feel like that's been in my life forever.
Yeah, and it was only March or whatever it was.
I know.
That did it.
I know, just spectacular. Now, ever want to go out in style, Kay has deemed that this episode shall have 2 bakes.
2 cakes.
Oh my goodness. Beyond exciting.
Yes, very seasonal.
Seasonal gorgeousness all the way.
Yeah.
And we can't wait to share it with you because we have, of course, dried it.
We have indeed several pieces.
And it is they are utterly delicious.
Delicious.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have a tale of 2 cities for you.
Oh.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Well, who wrote that?
Dickens.
Of course.
I've not read that one.
I do apologise. We have just come back from our honeymoon. Woohoo! Radio show all about it.
Yeah.
We recorded it literally on the way back.
On the way home in the car.
We'll probably touch on it a tiny bit in today's show, but we get back from our honeymoon.
Yeah.
And there on the doorstep, looked like it had been there for about 5 days. Was an Amazon box.
An Amazon parcel. They stuck it behind the bushes near the door, which they shouldn't do if we're not in, but...
So, Amazon box, stuffed behind the bushes.
Yeah.
And soaked.
Soaked through.
So you're like, oh, what's in there? Thankfully, all it was a pair of drumsticks.
Yeah.
It was from my brother. My brother had sent me some very kindly. And the box was big enough to house a set of saucepans. This
has become a real problem, I think, with Amazon.
Now look.
And we've read recently they've reduced their packaging.
Now, I was about to say this. We only say this because we've actually heard adverts. There was an advert.
Yeah.
Of course, everyone who watched the last episode will know we are now converts to Absolute Radio 80s.
Oh, yes.
And I'm sure it was on there. There was an advert saying how they've reduced their packaging.
Well, I don't know what they were before they reduced them. I ordered some wrapping paper for Bryony for her birthday, and it was quite specific. That's the only reason I got it from there, because I couldn't find it anywhere else. And it's literally a roll of wrapping paper. It was only short like this, and the box was like massive, and it had 1 roll of paper in it.
And do you remember when you ordered Bryony 2 pillows?
Yes.
And the box that came... the pillows inside, surrounded by padding.
Yeah.
They're pillows.
I mean,
it's like...
I don't know who's packaging these things, but I don't think there's any care or thought goes into it.
I have a theory as to why they're saying they've reduced their packaging.
Right.
I think what they've done is they have reduced the amount of size of boxes and envelopes that they're using.
Oh, right.
They've gone, okay, if it is a package of this size, we're just going to use one size box, whether it be the right size or the wrong size, and we'll stuff it full of brown paper padding.
Brown paper.
Because, of course, that can be put in the recycling.
Which we obviously recycle, and that's great, but... there's
no room left in our house.
No, we recycle such a huge amount of cardboard that...
The padding from the pillows filled one of our bins. And they're big. They're huge bins. That's like a week.
Yeah,
And the only way that I could deal with it was by leaving it out. Thankfully, it rained.
And it squashed it down.
Neil, the reason why I say this is a tale of two cities, because you think, don't you, well, that's the world we live in today. Gone are the heady days of walking into a shop, getting world-class service, and walking out happily with your purchase under your arm.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that those days are not gone.
No.
Those days still exist in exactly the same layout, format, and stock, I think, in certain parts, in a shop in York, which Kay wonderfully calls Burkitt's.
Oh, I can never remember the name of it.
It's called Barnett's.
Barnett's.
Now, we had to go in there to pick up a light bulb for our daughter, who... You will know if you've been watching recent episodes, she's just gone to university. And we go in there, we ask for a light bulb, and we got an education, I tell you.
We got an absolute education in every bulb and wattage and what all the wattages and volts and everything means. We were like, whoa.
And the best part was, he clearly loved every minute.
Oh, he was so enthusiastic. And he was upstairs and checking stock, and he's like, well, just check it. Oh, let me just check. And up and down. And we were like, gosh, And we got the perfect bulb.
We did.
I know.
It was absolutely exceptional.
His mind nearly exploded, though, when we told him it was a dimmer. It was a dimmer. Yes. Like, oh, if it's a dimmer. No, hang on. If it's a dimmer.
You don't want these bulbs.
You don't want these ones. You want these ones over here.
Just exceptional. I would say to you, look, York is a tourist destination, and I would say that there is a chance. In fact, I know that we've got viewers out there who've been to York. If you find yourself in York, I would recommend to you heartily that you go into Barnett's, because you will find something in there that will be useful.
You will. It stocks everything.
Yes.
It's massive, first of all, massive.
Barnett's is the most exceptional shop because it has 4 entrances on 2 different streets.
Yeah.
I've been in there when I was young. We used to go in there.
It's been there decades.
Yes. Never changed.
Yeah.
I've been in there when I was young. Went in there Christmas shopping. I saw the light and I came out onto the street and I'm like, where am I? I was only young.
Came out on a different street.
I'm like, oh my goodness. So I had to go back inside because I was searching for my mum. I mean, it is the most wonderful shop.
It is. And it's really close to the Shambles, actually. It's just off King Square.
It is. So definitely, walk down the Shambles and then call in Barnett's and ask for a light bulb.
You would walk past it and you would think, if you were just there as sort of like a regular tourist sort of day.
It's an old-fashioned hardware store.
You would never think you would go in. The window is full of teapots and crockery and lamps and massive lighting section.
Yeah.
Anyway, but go in, and they actually were just opening the Christmas department.
We've not even been upstairs.
There's an upstairs.
Next time, Kay.
Did not even go upstairs.
Next time we go, it's going to be spectacular. It's just a proper old-fashioned
shop, and if you need anything, honestly, go in.
That's the place to go.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Now, look, we covered our honeymoon in depth on the radio show, but I just have to pause for a second to show you this wonderful photo. This photo was taken in front of the pew, which we went to on the Sunday that we were there, and we went to a service, Kay's first ever Church of England service.
Yes.
We went to Matins.
We did.
And we literally sat right behind the choir, and it was the most spectacular experience.
Fantastic.
I mean, can you imagine being, we've all been to wonderful concerts, haven't we? Imagine being stood next to the performer. Yeah. That is what we were.
We were, and I'm not Church of England, and, so I didn't grow up with that experience. And I said to Dan, I've always really wanted to know just what a straightforward service is like. I've been to weddings and things like that, but it's just not the same, is it?
No.
So, we were in York, let's go to a service. And you were a bit like, not uncomfortable, but because Dan sang there in services for so many years, it just felt a bit strange going back for you, didn't it? But you...
Yeah, because I've not been to a service since I was a choir boy.
Yeah.
I've been to the Minster loads of times, but not actually into a service.
But we both absolutely loved it. And such a calming, peaceful and just uplifting experience. Absolutely loved it. So again, if you are in your kind of weekend, I would really recommend you do that. I
think what I enjoyed more, I enjoyed everything about it, and it brought back so many wonderful memories, but I enjoyed more, how they say you're living it through someone else's experience, and being stood next to Kay when this was happening, it was just amazing. I could just feel this like gush of positive energy coming off her, even though we were just stood there. It was amazing. I'll never ever forget it. No. What we both said was, if we had the opportunity, and hopefully we will do, we would go to things like that regularly. And this is it's not for a religious reason.
No.
It's out and out for the community element. Everyone's there together. No one can be touching anything electronic or doing anything on their phones. Everyone's experiencing it all together. The music, the setting. All of that, and spectacular.
Everybody's in that moment, aren't they? And you're together with all these people experiencing that same moment with
it's just wonderful.
No distractions, in this beautiful place with this, the choir were just amazing. And it was, I came out and I just felt fantastic. And I said, gosh, if this is what it should be about, going to church.
Welcoming,
and that hasn't been
joyousness.
That hasn't been my experiences through my life, and I just loved it.
You can hear all about our honeymoon on our radio show episode, which is available to listen to right now. Look, 2 great What's Off Your Needles today. Some absolutely just tremendous What's On Your Needles. A new cast on from me. Hold your horses.
Stop everything.
Yeah, stop everything. Without further ado...
Have you reached double figures yet?
No. But hopefully I will do by the end of the year.
I hope so.
Yes, I hope so too. I think it's high time that I said, Kay Jones, what's on your needles?
Okay, so the first thing on my needles is a little tale of woe with then a change of mind and now something new on the needles. So yes, this is a new cast on. So before I show you actually the new cast on, I'll just explain why it's a little bit of a tale of woe.
You're going to show them the old cast on?
Yes, this is a pair of socks for Dan. And you might recall that last time I had also started a pair of socks for Dan. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this pair of socks that I started for him, right? It's these ones. I'll show them to you. Do you remember? It's this pair. So it's a self-striping yarn from Freckled Whimsy called Borgin and Burks. And you can see now that I've got the heel in and I was just starting on the gusset decreases. But you know what? I just wasn't feeling it. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with the yarn. It's perfectly lovely. But I don't know, I think I just wanted something a bit brighter and a bit more... Poppy. And this is quite subdued. It's very autumnal, it fits with the season perfectly.
And the theme.
These were Sockaween socks because we are in our Sockaween season. But it just wasn't feeling Sockaweeny for me. So I just thought, and at first I was like, look, I'll just plough through, it's fine. And then I thought, no, I don't need to plough through, this is ridiculous. I'm the boss of my own knitting. I'm going to make a decision and I'm going to cast on a new pair. So I've actually left this on the needle because it could be that I come back to it. I might suddenly decide that I want to carry on with it and I'll come back to it. But for now, I'm just setting that aside and I've started a new pair because I think the other thing was, again, having said last time, I think you might remember, I said last time that I preferred socks that have a bit of something going on as opposed to a plain sock. Well, of course, what I actually really fancied was a plain sock. So I'm contradicting myself. Don't we all do that, though, with our knitting at some point? So I thought what I actually want is just to to grab a lovely skein of yarn from my stash that, you know, to me might look a bit Halloweeny, and just knit a plain pair of socks. So that's what I did. So I went to my stash and I pulled out a skein that I bought fairly recently, actually. It's from Pixie Yarn. Oh, and I love Sophie's yarn so much. She's got such a way with colour. But this particular one is called Winterfell. So although that's not it doesn't conjure up Halloweeny vibes, the colours actually do sort of feel Halloweeny. They're very moody, they're purples, deep blues, there's some green in there, golds. So it's all those kinds of witchy sort of colours for me. I actually looked up what Winterfell meant. There was sort of two things I found. One was the sort of immediate translation was Winter Mountain, but then also I found a Game of Thrones reference. I don't know if it's a place or what it is. I've never seen Game of Thrones, but so I'm not sure where that name comes from. But in any case, the yarn is just lovely. It's, you know, just beautiful, beautiful colours. So I thought, yeah, I'm just going to grab that, cast on, knit a plain pair of socks. You can see it's highly variegated, so I did not know what was going to happen with regards to how this will knit up. I have used Sophie's yarn, variegated yarns before for several different things, hats, mitts, and it's always knit up really lovely. But I've never used a variegated to knit socks for Dan, you know, with a 72 stitch count, so I had no idea how that was going to affect it. And it's doing a kind of weird pooly thing. Okay, but I'm carrying on for a few reasons. One is that, I mean, here's the sock. You can see it, can't you? You can see what's happening there. It's got a kind of vertical pooling thing going on. I've never really had a vertical pooling situation before. Look at it. But I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to carry on because I'm enjoying knitting just a plain sock for starters. Secondly, I do love the colours, even though they are gathering, let's say, in certain areas. I am enjoying the colours. And now I've got to the gusset decreases. It actually looks different, obviously, over the gusset decreases it looks different. And I really like the way some bits of this are looking. Look, there's a weirdness going on just here. It's just a bit bizarre, isn't it, how it's knitting up? But does that just add to the sort of spookiness of it? It's being a bit Halloweeny, isn't it? You know, some spell has befallen it and it's doing this weirdness. So, yeah, it is what it is. And you all know how I feel about pooling. I don't need to go on about that. You know, but sometimes I don't think there really is anything you can do about it. And I know that if I knit a pair of 64 stitch socks with this yarn, it would look completely different. So really, it just depends on so many factors. It depends on your gauge, it depends on what you're knitting, the size, all sorts of things. So it could be that, you know, two different knitters have the same skein of yarn, they knit exactly the same size of socks, and one person's will look different to the other because their gauge is different, you know. It's just the way it is. But I'm carrying on, as I said, because I like the yarn. And I'm just enjoying knitting a plain sock. But I did put in a contrast heel. Isn't this green lovely?
It's lovely. I
just found this mini. It's just a 10 gram mini in my stash. So there's just enough really for two heels. But I just thought it went really well with the colours because there is this kind of muddy olivey green within these colours. So I just thought it went really well. So yeah, I'm enjoying it, I'm carrying on, I'm on the gusset decreases, and I've knit this really quite quickly to this point. I'm using 2.5mm. I always use 2.5mm for Dan because that just gives a bit more room and it just fits in really well. And I do get a nice gauge with that anyway. It's not that it's a super loose gauge. Yeah, and I'm really really enjoy knitting them, so I'm just carrying on with these. And you never know, I might go back to that other pair, might I, at some point. I don't want to rip it off the needle at this point, because, you know, I don't want to make a decision that I'll regret later when I think, oh, do you know what? You know, I was halfway down that sock and I just ripped it out. So I'm just setting that one aside and just continuing with this one for a Sockaween sock. So we'll see how far we get next time. I want to get at least this sock finished and on with the second sock within the next couple of weeks, because they do take some time, Dan's socks. It's not so much that it's 72 stitches, it's the fact that the foot is really long for Dan's socks as well, so that seems to just take forever. But plain sock, you know, it's going quick, nearly finished with the gusset decreases, and then I'm hoping I can just zoom down the foot and get the toe done. I haven't got enough of this green to do the toes, unfortunately, so it's just going to be a contrast heel. But I think that's nice, isn't it? So it's interesting, and it did get me thinking about the whole variegated yarn thing. And I did dye a skein. I don't know what I've done with it. I did, you know, because I was thinking so much about variegated yarn, you know what I'm like, I get a bit kind of obsessed. I'm thinking, you know, is there no way of avoiding this happening, you know? Is it possible, I guess the question is, to have a variegated skein of yarn and it knit up nicely without pooling in 2 different size socks, for example? And I don't know if that's possible. So I thought, well, I'm dyeing some yarn in the next couple of days. I'm just going to dye up a variegated skein and do a bit of an experiment with it. So I have dyed up a variegated skein and a contrast mini in sort of similar colours to this. I was inspired by this, so I've used like blues and purples and greens and a bit of gold. And at some point I'm going to do a little experiment, I think. I'm going to knit a 72 stitch sock and I'm going to knit a 64 stitch sock. And I'm just going to see what they look like. I think it's just that thing's triggered in my brain where I'm like really curious, and I'm like, look, is it possible? Is it down to the dye method? Is it just one of those things and it doesn't matter how you dye the yarn? If it's variegated, some fruitiness can happen regardless. So who knows?
What would be interesting would be if you could go, right, okay, if this method is used, if you knit a 64 stitch, then it's going to look like this.
Yeah.
But if you knit a 72, it's going to look like this. So then having a understanding of, okay, I bought this, it looks great looks great on the shelf. I have to use it in this way, because if I don't, it's going to pull and I'm not going to enjoy that.
That's a great idea, but then of course not everybody's gauge is the same as the person who's knit it, showing it how it knits up.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of times...
So I suppose the question is there a foolproof way of dyeing that?
That's what I'm... Yes. That's my question, really.
And next year, you're going to find out.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I know that because quite often, you know, dyers will show a sock sample and it might have been cranked on one of the sock machines, you know, but it will have been cranked at a certain gauge. But if you don't knit to that gauge, it's not going to look like it looked on the photo. So it's all a mystery, isn't it? Wrapped in an enigma, as they say. But it's something that I'm curious about, and I think I'm going to do a bit of experimenting this next year. You know, I've dyed a skein. I might take another variegated skein out of my stash, just a random one, and try that, you know, 64 and a 72. It means that at some point we'll probably have mismatched pairs of socks, but that doesn't matter, does it? Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think it's an interesting thing to think about, and I don't know if there's a solution, but it might be fun to have a little go. So Dan Jones.
Yes.
What's on your needles?
Film buffs, if you're wondering what Kay was quoting there, it was Joe Pesci playing the part of David Ferry in the movie JFK.
Oh, yeah. It's a mystery wrapped in an enigma.
Yes, that's right.
Did you say something else after it?
Yeah, there's more to the line.
There's more to it, yeah.
It's when Jim Garrison asks David Ferry who shot JFK.
Yeah, and he's like, who shot him?
Yeah.
No one knows. It was like that.
What's on my... Oh, no, he did know. Oh, no, he didn't know. He didn't know because there was too many people involved. But look, we're getting into conspiracy theories here.
Yes.
Go listen to our conspiracy theories radio show.
Don't start us on that.
Don't start us on that. So what's on my needles? It's a new cast on.
Yay!
The ding that brings joy to my heart.
When it's your ding.
In my heart,
oh,
I behold your... What did you just say? Move on. So I've cast on... First of all, we should look at this yarn. Look at this yarn. This yarn is spectacular, is it not? I mean, talk about seasonal, and it also matches my gorgeous bag. I mean,
it matches perfectly.
It couldn't be better.
Bag.
But look...
What's happened here?
Let's hold up a skein each.
What's happened?
Look at that.
What?
I mean, it is just perfect.
Very bright.
It's really bright.
It's not quite that bright in real life.
I am knitting the Sweetheart Cowl.
Very Halloweeny.
Second time I've knitted this. Long time since I've knitted it. And it's wonderful. I've only just started the ribbing, but the ribbing is different. It is not 2x2.
No.
There's interesting things going on. And that brings joy to my heart,
Dan
most
likes
definitely.
an interesting ribbing, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. So what I'm looking forward to with this is the first time I knitted this, I deliberately used a variegated and a solid.
Yes.
And that's because I wanted to give the effect of a ruin.
Yes.
And I am now trying to think of who it is who is buried. Oh my goodness.
In Sweetheart Abbey.
I know who it is.
Who is that?
It is one of the old owners of Barnard Castle.
Oh,
so anyone who's enjoyed the Castle Nation series, it's his heart.
His actual heart?
His actual heart. Because he died and his wife was still alive. She was Scottish. She moved back to Scotland and she built Sweetheart Abbey in honour of him and buried his heart there.
It's very Once Upon a Time.
I know.
Anybody who's watched it.
But it's actually real.
It's actually real.
So I used a variegated because I wanted to give the sort of ruined effect that Sweetheart Abbey is today. But this time I thought it would be fun to use two solids.
We've gone very highly contrasting.
You dyed this, didn't you?
I did. I dyed both of these. So the dark grey you can see is sparkly. This orangey is not sparkly.
Some might say sparklicious.
But it's the same base. It's just that this has sparkle, this doesn't. It's the 8515, but sparklicious and not. And I don't even remember why I dyed this one, the grey one. I can't even remember.
It's not a Star Warsy one, is it?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't think so. But in any case, I think it'll be super fun. So you're using the grey, the dark grey as the background colour, and then the colour work is going to be in the orange. I think that's just going to
pop.
Blow your mind, isn't it?
It's going to look cool. Bryony might like this, actually.
I think she would really like it. Yeah.
So that'd be fun.
And it's nice and soft.
Yes. Really soft.
Yeah.
Because we were out shopping for cardigans with her the other day, and it was just hilarious.
She wanted a new cardigan.
She was sticking her arm into things which were soft as anything, and she's going, oh, no.
Scratchy.
It's way too scratchy. I'm like, you want to try some Let Lopey, love?
And they weren't scratchy.
That's not scratchy.
In her head they were. We did find a couple of really cute cardigans for her, so that was nice. But anyway, yeah.
So, this should do the trick, I think. But I'm really looking forward to it. I've realised that, doing these cowls is such an important part of my sort of overall approach and to knitting and making it so that when I hit the yokes on my colourwork jumpers, which I'm about to on the Godey, that my colourwork technique is absolutely where it needs to be.
Yeah,
it just keeps me in check.
I think colourwork cowls are a great way of practicing because you don't have to worry about decreases.
Yeah.
You can just do it on a hat circular, which is what Dan's doing it on, so there's no worry about changing needles and laddering and all of that business, and it just allows you to focus on the colourwork and your technique on the colourwork.
It's brilliant.
So it's 3.5mm, which is what the pattern recommends, so I think it's just going to be lovely.
Yes. I can't wait to get a bit of the colour in.
Yeah.
And it won't be long.
No.
So that'll be exciting.
Very exciting.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of Sockoween and Halloween and all the loveliness, I mean, just hold that bag up because, just look at this.
This bag, you might recall...
What comment did I make this morning?
You said something like... Oh,
you could argue that looks a little bit Halloweeny.
The little fabrics, and I said, well, that's because it is. There's candy corn and there's pumpkins and spiders.
Okay.
I think it's because it's not typical Halloween.
It doesn't
colours,
scream Halloween.
No, but it was a little... So the embroidery I did for Summer of Stitching like 2 years ago now, isn't it? So we all embroidered this little mushroom house, and then I made it into a bag. So I used one of those sets of tiny squares. What's that called? You know what I mean. You know the little tiny squares? Mini charm packs, is it? Or something like that. And then the sort of main starry fabric that went with the range I used as the sort of rest of it. And it's a lovely bag, I really like it. It's far too big for the project, but I don't care, you know. I wanted to use it, it doesn't matter, does it? But what I've got in here, it's not Sockoween because it's not a sock, but it's very much Halloween themed. So let me get out all my yarn. So here are the yarns that I'm using. I've got 4 different yarns, and it's sort of interesting because one of them's new to me. I've got, so the colours, first of all, you might recognise the colours. If you are a fan of Beetlejuice, you might recognise these colours. So Bryony recently watched Beetlejuice, the original one, and she was raving about it. She did her, I'm now obsessed by all things Beetlejuice. I had no idea what she's talking about. I'd never seen Beetlejuice, did not know a thing about it. So actually, this past week when we came home, I watched it because I wanted to be part of this excitement. She kept texting me things and saying things about it, and I thought, I want to know what she's talking about. She was convinced I would not like it because she said it's Tim Burton, and she knows I'm not keen on Tim Burton stuff. But it's an older film. I think it was like 88 or something. And I do like an 80s film. So I watched it and I really enjoyed it. There is some weirdness. There is some Tim Burton sort of creaturey weirdness, but not really that much. You know, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was acted well and it was fun. So I thought, right, okay, I'm going to make her something that's Beetlejuice because it's her birthday coming up in a couple of weeks, so that'll be fun. So I pulled out some yarns from my stash and checked with her. I said, do these look like Beetlejuice colours? And she's approved them. So I've got 4 different yarns. So the first one, which is new to me, I want to sing a song.
New to me are everything, the sweetest song that I could sing, oh baby.
Except it's you to me, not new to me. But
do you know what? I never realised that, Kate.
All right. So the first one is this. This is I want to sing it now. New to me yarn.
You give me just a taste of love to keep me holding on.
Carry on singing it, everybody. But you can see it's by Yarn Smiths and it's merino sock. This is a range of yarn, the Yarn Smith range. It's a own brand range from Wool Warehouse. So if like me, you're a regular shopper in Wool Warehouse, you might have seen this range of yarn. They do other bases as well. But I wanted to try this one, so I got a couple of colours in the merino sock. And this purple is shade 2K356. It does have a name, I can't remember what the name was. But it's the only one that looks like this purple. The skeins are really odd. Look at the skein, it's like a torpedo. It keeps making me laugh, the skein. I think, look at it. It's like a, I don't know, like I say, a torpedo, like torpedo sweet, you know, those sweets. Anyway, but I think this shape of a skein is more common in Europe. I feel like I've seen skeins this shape from like European companies. I don't know if that's right or not, but I've just been pulling from the outside because I don't need very much of it. I think if I was going to be using the whole skein for a project, I'd wind it into a cake because it's kind of annoying pulling from the outside of it. And I know some people pull from the inside. I don't do that. I've got a theory about that, why I don't do it. I've mentioned it several times before, but yeah. So that's the purple. I then needed a bright green. This is like a neon green. This was just a 20 gram mini out of my stash. I've got an undyed mini, again, out of my stash. And then I needed a black. So this black is just Cascade Heritage, that again was in my stash. And it's just black, but it's colourway 5672. So I've got those 4 colours going on because Beetlejuice, if you don't know, he wears a black and white striped suit. But actually, do you know what, right? I said to Bryony after I watched it, I said, Beetlejuice is actually not in it that much. I expected him to be a really prominent character, and whilst he does play a sort of important role in the film, he's not in it as much as I thought he would be. But whenever he is, he's always wearing some kind of black and white, but then famously it's this black and white suit, isn't it, that looks a bit grubby. So that's the black and white. And then the purple and green, I was like, when I was watching it, I'm like, where is this purple and green? And I think it comes from, there's like a sort of background smoky colour in quite a few of the scenes, and the green features quite a lot, and then there is a sort of bluey purple. It's more of a blue for me than purple. But anyway, this is when you see merchandise, these are the colours that you see. All that to be said about the yarn. I'm knitting Bryony some fingerless mitts, and I've finished one, so I shall pop it on. So I just improvised these, so here we go. How fun are they? I said to Bryony, gosh, I bet if you saw these in Primark, they'd all be sold out, wouldn't they? Everybody'd be wanting them.
You could have picked a better shop than that, Kate.
The only reason I say Primark is because on Bryony's birthday list, there was a Beetlejuice bag, a handbag thing, crossbody bag that's black and white stripes, and it was sold out everywhere. So I thought, I've got to try and see if I can get one of these. So I just did a Google search and I found some brand new ones on eBay. I'm a bit dubious about eBay. I've had a couple of dodgy things that I've purchased from eBay, but I thought I'll take a risk with this. It said it was brand new with tags in the UK. I thought, right, I'll give it a go. And it was only like a couple of pounds more than it was in the shop. So I've got a one. So that's the only reason I said Primark. It should be a much classier shop than Primark, shouldn't it? But aren't they fun? So I spent some time, as you can imagine. Oh,
you didn't just poke yourself
like No, I went. Oh. I spent some time, as you can imagine, for me, working out what I was going to do about the colour distribution. Because I knew it was going to be black and white, obviously, on the hand, but I didn't know then how I was going to use the green and the purple. But I think what I've done here, so the cuff is primarily green with just a tiny band of the purple, and then I've used the purple up here as well for the ribs at the top, and I think it's nicely balanced. And I sent a picture to Bryony last night. I was like, oh, I've finished one. She was like, it's literally perfect. I said, oh, right, I better finish the other one for your birthday then. And she's like, oh, please, please. So obviously I will. So you probably won't see these again on my hands here looking at you, because Bryony's coming home in a week or so, just for the weekend, because it's her birthday coming up, and I'll give them to her then. But we'll make sure we take footage of the finished mitts for next time. But yeah, they're really fun. So I just did, I think this is 20 rounds altogether of 2x2 here. So I did 9 green, 2 purple, 9 green. And then my black and white stripes, these are 6 rounds each. And then the rib at the top, I think this one is 7 rounds, and this little one is just 3, I think. I think it's just 3 rounds here. And then I continued the colour up the thumb as well here. So I think they're quite sweet, aren't they? There is a jog down the side, as if Bryony's going to be bothered. You know, there is a jog there. She won't care, I'm not bothered. The ends took some time to weave in, I'll say that. But she loves them, so it's worth it. I'll do anything. I'll do anything if someone is going to really appreciate it and love it. I'll do anything, I don't mind. You know, that's, for me, it's about the person really enjoying them. And, you know, the thought, I can see Bryony sticking these on her hands straight away, and they'll stay on there, you know, until some other obsession comes along and I'll make her something else. But, you know, I know she will love them, and that's what's important, isn't it? So I have cast on the second one. Oh no, I nearly dropped my yarn. I have cast on the second one. I did it just last night, actually. Oh, it's tangled. I've only just started the rib, but it really didn't take me long. I think I knit this in like 2.5 days or something. Really, really quick, aren't they, fingerless mitts? So I'm going to crack on with this and get it done, hopefully in a couple of days.
And I know you're going to love this hat.
It's for me, isn't it?
Yeah, because you claimed it.
I know, I'm very excited.
It's the Heartleaf birch hat. And I must say that this has been, it's been challenging, but I've decided that I have to get ribbing back into my regular rotation.
Oh, right.
That's quite hard to say.
But that's very hard to say.
Because on a ribbing round, it was like what knitting used to be when I first started. So there's no complaints from me about that, because the whole reason why I like to knit is so that my mind gets cleared. And when I do a ribbing round, there is nothing else on my mind apart from the ribbing.
Because you concentrate.
I even forgot to breathe at one point. It's completely engrossing. And that's why knitting is unlike any other art form, skill, I think. Certainly that I've experienced. I mean, I worked for a joiner for a little bit when I was young and did a bit of joinery. I also worked for a piano tuner and did a bit of that. And obviously being a musician, being a teacher. Music regularly gets compared to knitting. And whilst music has huge similarities to knitting with regards to the rhythm of a pattern and also the counting of repeats and all of those, there's loads of links between knitting and music. Music is not as all-encompassing when you're being pushed really hard. It's not as all-encompassing as knitting. And it's definitely not, when you're playing it, music to listen to is relaxing, but it's not relaxing. Because if you think about it, on a ribbing round, I'm saying to you that I'm literally on the cusp of my abilities. And yes, as Kay spotted, I did make a mistake.
Oh, it's beautiful, isn't it?
When I am knitting a absolutely edge of ability round, that is relaxing. Now, isn't that weird?
Yeah, I mean,
because you wouldn't think it was.
No, is that a word I would use? I suppose it's engrossing for me, I would probably say.
But that relaxes me.
Yeah.
Doing plain knitting going round and round doesn't relax me.
Because your mind can wander, can't it? I think it's keeping your mind completely focused on the task.
If I'm doing plain ribbon round and round, I tend to get bored.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm engrossed by, I suppose it's a bit like reading a great book.
Yeah.
You're engrossed by the book. And that is a wonderful thing, I think. Don't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Look how cute it is when it's cuffed.
So this, like I said, it's the Heartleaf Birch hat. It's a free pattern.
It is.
And it's a really, really good pattern. And the ribbing is really intricate, which I enjoy. You know, it's sort of getting towards the Cascades level of intricacy. Some of the,
There's
backs
a lot of cabling going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I like that. I mean, I nearly did a Declan's hat, and that's a great pattern. But I'm really glad that you found this one.
It's much simpler than this one, the Declan's, isn't it? Yeah, the Declan's hat, interestingly, was another free pattern, and I don't think it's available anymore on Ravelry.
Oh, okay.
I think it got withdrawn.
Right.
But I know a lot of us have got it in our libraries anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm so glad to have knitted this one, and so thank you for finding it for me. And the yarn is just simply gorgeous.
It's lovely, isn't it?
Nearly used it all.
Gosh, yeah, you're doing well. You'll have plenty.
Yeah.
So it's Malabrigo Rios.
Yes.
In glitter. Oh, it's just the most beautiful shade of brown. Gosh, it's so lovely, isn't it?
It'll look gorgeous on your head.
Oh, I love it.
It's going to suit your hair and your skin tones.
Do you think?
Listen to me.
Yeah,
definitely.
I do like autumnal sort of colours. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Look, you have another wonderful looking Halloweeny bag there.
I do. I just need to grab a blocker.
I'm absolutely desperate because I don't know. I want to know.
You do know what's in it.
What is in your final project bag?
So in my final Halloweeny project bag, which is from Moo and Mouse, the lovely Emma, is another pair of Sockaween socks. So these ones are much closer to being finished.
Look at those.
I've got one sock done and I'm on the leg of the other. So I showed you these again last time, I'm pretty sure. And I finished a sock and it's absolutely fabulous.
Now, of course, Kay, if you're a Halloween purist, you wouldn't have purple in that sock.
No. Do you know, this is really interesting. I was watching...
And also, I mean, what is this?
I know, I shouldn't be wearing purple at all.
In fact, banish all purple from the house this month.
I didn't know this, but I was watching Jen recently, Jen is our editor of Knitability, and she has a YouTube channel. Now, is it Jen Loves Yarn or is it Beer Knits?
It's Jen Likes Yarn.
Jen Likes Yarn. Doesn't love it, likes it. Jen Likes Yarn. And she's been doing Vlogtober. And the way that she does Vlogtober is she'll record like little bits every day and then she'll compile it into 1 a week videos. And I just watched her most recent one. But somewhere within all of those videos, she mentioned that purple actually is a fairly recent addition to Halloween colours. I didn't know this. She said that, you know, going back in time, you know, probably to her childhood maybe, so I'm not sure if you're talking maybe 30 years ago. I don't know, Jen, how long ago, but she said it was more orange and black with maybe a little bit of green, and now purple has come into that. So I don't know whether she was saying it was sort of funny. I'm like, oh, does she disagree with having purple as the Halloween colour? That's quite funny. But I just thought that was really interesting because she's very knowledgeable on Halloween. Yes. I always get the impression that Jen is like fully Halloween.
Yes.
She loves it.
Yes.
So yeah, it's really interesting. But I do have purple in this sock. So this is the finished one. Oh, isn't it fabulous? So the yarn is from Polka Dot Creek. So the self-striping and then a contrast 20 gram mini came with it, and the colourway is called Slimy, which is super cool. So you get 4 stripes. There's like a dark purple, then a black, a speckledy with the sort of purple and green in, and then this bright neon green, and then this sort of pinky purple as contrast. So I've done my fairground pattern because that's the only socks that Bryony wants these days, so I'm not going to argue with her. And one is finished and the other one is on the go. So I'm on with the leg. They don't match in terms of I've started the stripe at a different point, but I don't really care about that. I actually quite prefer it if they don't match exactly because I feel like I'm not knitting the same thing exactly twice. So I just start it on whatever the next full stripe is in my skein. So again, I want to get these finished in the next few days because these will be a birthday gift for Bryony when she'll be coming home in just over a week. So I want to get those finished for then. But aren't they lovely?
They're gorgeous.
Oh, so fun. I've really enjoyed Polka Dot Creek's yarn, you know. The stripy yarn is so fun and the colours are lovely. And I'm going to show you in Endy Bits actually. I just received some self-striping yarn from another dyer, which I'm very excited about. So I'll show you that in Endy Bits. But yeah, Sockaween socks on the go. Again, this pair will be finished for next time, but you will likely just see the finished pair sort of, you know, filmed because I will have given them to her by then. Sorry, my cuff is down.
I thought it would be annoying.
Does it match?
It does match.
It sort of matches my jumper.
Absolutely matches.
A cosmic jumper. Yeah, so really enjoying those.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, huge news flash.
Oh.
Because when I was but a young stripling, we can say nothing more about that.
Discovered that word recently.
We did. Stay tuned to the rest of our productions this year, and you may find out more.
Yeah.
Yes, when I was a young stripling, I used to catch the bus into York to go to work at the music shop called Banks. Yeah. Banks Music. That was the name of the people. Yeah. That was their surname.
Was it really?
Yes, yeah, their surname was Banks, yes.
And the shop is just empty and abandoned.
Well, it's depressing because basically what happened was Mrs. Banks retired. And she'd inherited it from about 4 or 5 generations of Bankses.
Oh, gosh, wow.
It was the music shop. It was the most spectacular shop. It was on the corner of Stonegate for many years, and then it moved. It moved to next to the post office, which is just around the corner, bigger premises. And I worked, when I was at music college, I worked there, and I used to catch the bus to go to work, and on my way to work, if I'd not had chance to get breakfast, I would pick up a chocolate Cadbury's Boost bar, nice healthy breakfast, and I would also have a carton of Ribena raspberry juice.
Yeah.
And I did that for a long time, and then they stopped making the Ribena raspberry juice. Clearly, not enough people were buying it. And for the rest of my life, I have been searching for a drink which tasted like it. And then just the other day, was I on my own? Did I come home with it?
Did I find it?
I have no recollection.
I think I found it.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Robinsons.
Robinsons.
So it's the makers of Ribena.
Do they make Ribena?
Oh,
Robinsons?
I don't know. I thought they did.
Do they?
Or maybe they don't.
I don't think it's Robinsons.
Okay, I'll take it all back.
I've never seen Robinsons on Ribena.
I take it back. Is it Britvic?
Oh, it might be Britvic. I never liked Ribena, the blackcurrant. I've got an aversion to blackcurrants.
Me neither.
But anyway, yeah.
But Kay found a raspberry and lemon cordial.
Yeah.
Now, the thing about the raspberry drink out of the carton was, all the years ago, was it had a bit of punch. You know, there was a sharpness to it. So immediately I thought, you know what, this has got potential.
Yes.
So I made one. It has more than potential. It's just the same.
You said it tastes just the same.
It tastes just the same. And that is what is now regularly in my lovely pink, whatever this is.
I didn't like it. Oh, a squirrel! Look at him, he's got a nut. Sorry.
Welcome to Winter Watch.
Oh, don't even. No.
But yes, an absolute triumph of a drink.
Yeah, I didn't really like it.
It's Robinson's Creations.
Robinson's Creations.
And it's raspberry and lemon.
Cordial.
Yes.
If you don't know what a cordial is, I know that this is quite a... well, no, because I don't think it's something that's common everywhere.
Okay. Is it called something else in other places?
Maybe it is.
It's a concentrated liquid that you add water to.
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes called squash cordial. Oh, there he is.
Okay, dear.
Oh my gosh, he's burying it in our lawn.
Yes, and I saw him digging one up in the lawn recently.
He's burying a nut.
He's using our lawn to bury his nuts.
In our front lawn.
We have
look at him.
Absolutely no criticisms. I shall protect that lawn.
Hey, he's buried that quite deep.
Yes.
I can't believe that. That's adorable.
That's made our day.
I shall name him.
Yes.
Oh, look at his little feet.
Graham.
Yeah, so a cordial is basically a concentrated juice. So you put a little bit in a glass and top it up with water, and it's still. It's not sparkling. Dan does not like sparkling drinks.
No, not since my tummy surgery. Sparkling doesn't agree with me.
You can't drink sparkling drinks. So yeah, it's really good. But
it's gorgeous.
It was too sweet for me.
Definitely worth a try.
Yeah.
Look, it is the time of year when we say goodbye to things, and whilst that's sad, it does open up many, many other doors for wonderful things to happen, and we all know what that might be. Yes. But now is the moment to say goodbye to Kay's Classic Bakes. I can't quite believe it. Feels like an old friend, but Kay is going to go out in style.
Absolutely.
Oh yes, as we mentioned earlier, it's 2 wonderful bakes. They're super seasonal. We hope you enjoy this. Yes. This is Kay's Classic Bakes.
I've grown older, I've come to realise I am at heart an old-fashioned girl. Put me in a kitchen baking something wonderful and I am in heaven. There is something very special about baking. It's like chemistry as the ingredients come together to hopefully create something wonderful. This year, I'm going to share with you 6 of my favourite bakes. Along the way, I'm going to add some little twists in my attempt for perfection. Welcome to Kay's Classic Bakes. Yes, so here I am, everybody. I am back in the kitchen for what is the final time this year. I mean, how exciting is that? I can't believe we've reached the final episode already. But it's a very exciting episode because this time we're actually going to be creating 2
2 fantastic baked items. Now, the reason we're doing 2 is twofold really. One is because this is the last episode and we wanted to end it with, you know, like a big crescendo, but also because we are now fully into autumn. It's almost Halloween, we're nearly at bonfire night, and you know, the air is now crisp when I go for a walk and there's leaves on the ground and you've had to put the heating on and all of those things have happened. So the 2 recipes we're going to be making are completely appropriate for this time of year, and I've got to say they are 2 of my absolute favourites. We've been eating one of them all week and it's absolutely delicious, and it might actually, one of them you're going to be probably really familiar with, but saying that, the recipe is a bit different to probably how you've either made it or eaten it before. But the other one you might not be familiar with at all, especially if you are not from the UK. So that's exciting, isn't it? So I guess the thing I need to tell you is what are we going to be baking? So the first thing we're going to make is a carrot cake. Now the carrot cake that I'm going to be making, it is a slightly different recipe because I really love carrot cake and I've eaten many carrot cakes over the years, but I think traditionally when you have it, you know, the carrot cake itself quite often has nuts in it, and the topping in particular is usually that sort of quite heavy cream cheese based frosting that you see on top. Now I'm not a massive fan of that, and I've been searching for years really for a recipe that would suit us a bit more, so it's a bit lighter, and I found one and it's amazing. There's a couple of things actually that's different about this recipe. The first one is that it doesn't contain nuts, but it does have something else in the cake which kind of replaces it and really adds to the kind of seasonal vibe to it. But the other thing is it doesn't have that cream cheese frosting. It has a different, much lighter and fresher topping as an icing really, rather than a frosting. And it's absolutely delicious and it's really easy to make. So that's the first thing we're going to be making. And then the second thing is Parkin. Now a lot of you, particularly in Yorkshire, Lancashire, I would think will more than likely be really familiar with what Parkin is. It's a traditional cake for particularly this time of year. Back in the day, you'd go out, you'd have a little bonfire in the garden, you'd swirl some sparklers around, you'd have a jacket potato that had been baking in the oven for a couple of hours, so you'd have that with some baked beans and sausages maybe, and then you'd have a big wedge of Parkin. So basically what Parkin is it's a ginger cake, but it's a ginger cake with a difference actually. It contains an ingredient which you might never have used in your baking, and you certainly might never have put it in your ginger cakes before, but it really adds something to it. It gives it a bit more sort of gusto to it. So that's the 2 things we're going to make. Are you excited? I'm really excited. So it's carrot cake first, and then in part 2 we're going to make the Parkin. So both of the cakes actually are really straightforward to make. It's basically a sort of put everything in a bowl situation, put it in the baking tin and in the oven. So that's why we can, you know, do 2 in this episode. They're straightforward, easy to make and delicious. There's nothing better, is there? So yeah, the first thing we need to do then is have a little look at the ingredients for the carrot cake. Okay, so here we are, we've got it all laid out. Our ingredients are all here on this side. So we'll start out first of all with oil. So I think this is quite traditional actually, that the fat sort of element of a carrot cake is oil. Now the recipe I'm using suggests sunflower oil, and I have made it with sunflower oil and it's perfectly fine, but here, you know, in our house we tend to use more olive oils than sunflower oil, and the one that I'm going to use, it isn't olive oil, but it's a really mild and light one, so it doesn't have that strong olive oil taste at all. Whenever we need olive oil, this is the one that we use, the mild and light one. So I've got the oil, but if you've got sunflower oil in your cupboard, use that. We've then got sugar. We've got light muscovado sugar. So this is, it's like a light brown colour. Again, this is Billington's, but you can get sort of own brand supermarket versions. And it looks like sand when you take it out of the packet, and it's got a slight sort of caramelly smell. So it's perfect for this sort of a recipe. Now we've got some raisins. So this really, I think, is what's replacing the nuts, if you like, because we've got no nuts in this. And I think that's a good thing as well if you're dealing with people that can't eat nuts, for example. So raisins we're going to be putting in, and these ones are really nice. They're really plump raisins. We've then got an orange, just one large orange. Our flour, as always, I'm going to be using spelt flour, white spelt flour. The recipe actually calls for self-raising flour, so if you've got self-raising flour, then just use that. I always use spelt flour, and then I add in baking powder to make it into self-raising, basically. So flour, in whatever form you want to use it. So I have got baking powder, but that's only because I need to add that to my flour to make it self-raising. But then the recipe also has a little bit of added bicarb, so bicarb of soda, so you will need that as well. So if you're just using self-raising flour, you do need bicarb. We've then got 3 eggs, some icing sugar, that's just for our topping, and then the spices. Now, the recipe that I took, that I'm using, uses cinnamon and it uses fresh nutmeg. I have a bit of an aversion to cinnamon. So I'm not going to be using cinnamon in its pure form. What I do is I use mixed spice. Now admittedly that mix does have cinnamon in, but because it's got loads of other spices as well, I don't really taste the cinnamon element. Feel free to use cinnamon. It's entirely up to you. Now this is interesting because my favourite Schwartz mixed spice, couldn't find anywhere. I've only got the tiniest bit left in here. Couldn't find it out. It's out of stock in Asda. They don't stock it anymore in Sainsbury's. So I think it's just that time of year as well when if a shop does have this, it's just selling out because people are making all things like this. So I am going to try a own brand supermarket mixed spice. Now this is an Asda one, and I've compared them. They are different, what the ingredients are different. So the one that I really like, the Schwartz mixed spice, it is cinnamon, coriander, caraway seed, ground nutmeg, ground ginger and cloves. The Asda one is cinnamon, coriander, nutmeg, cloves, allspice and ginger. So there are some differences and they do smell a bit different. So that's going to be interesting as well, just to see how that goes. So that's all of our ingredients, and then we're just going to need a couple of things to make it in. A nice bowl, weighing scales, a balloon whisk and our tin. So I've lined this already. You want a tin that's about 18 centimetres square. I've oiled this and lined it with some foil. You can line it with greaseproof paper if you prefer. I don't like using greaseproof to line it because I like to overlap it over the edges like this, so it makes it really easy to get it out of the tin. But I find when I use greaseproof paper to do that, with the heat of the oven makes it sort of curl back and it can go into the mixture. So I'm using foil, but you do whatever you want to. You basically want a lined 18 centimetre square tin. Okay, so I'm going to now turn my oven on to 160 degrees fan or 180 degrees if it's a non-fan, that's degrees C. Okay, so I'll pop the oven on, it can be preheating and we can get going. Oh, I didn't tell you about the carrot. You've all been going, she's not going to mention the carrot that's sat there when you're making carrot cake. Here's the carrot. For my carrot cake. So yeah, I've already grated this. So there's about 140 grams of carrot here, fresh carrot, and I've grated it on the fine setting. Do you know when you grate it, you have a fine side and a sort of chunkier grate? I've done it on the fine setting because I like how that kind of then melts into the mixture a bit easier. So yes, that's definitely everything now. so we can just clear the decks a bit and then we can get on and mix up our cake. Okay, so the first thing we've got to do is, well, I say the first thing, all we've got to do is just basically mix everything together. So we're going to start by popping my bowl on the scales and then zeroising. So I'm going to pop sugar into my bowl first of all. So it's 175 grams of the light muscovado sugar. 474. 5. There we go. I do always try to be as accurate as possible when I'm baking because it is a science. Right, so that's our sugar. So now into that we're going to put the oil and the eggs. And we need 175 millilitres of oil. So that's just going to go in. There we go. And then I'm just can take that off now for a second actually. I'll just crack my eggs in. Sorry about the horrible mark on my hand, if you can see that. Ironically, I burnt it, I burnt it on the oven last week. I wasn't making this. I was in a kitchen that wasn't mine and I didn't know the oven basically. So I'm going to give that a lovely mix. Now I'm just making sure that I've got that sugar mixed in because the muscovado, it does tend to sort of clump together in little clumps, and you can, if you want, push it through a sieve if you want to do that. I don't bother, and it can mean that sometimes, you know, those little clumps of sugar might still be in your mix, but it never causes me a problem. And actually, if you get a bit of cake that's like a little bit more sugary, it's quite nice. But you probably will find that it just sort of dissolves into the mix. That's fine. Okay, so now into that mix, I'm going to pop in my carrot and 100 grams of raisins. So we will just pop that back on. So 100 grams. And when I've made this before and given it to Bryony, and she's known there's raisins in it, she has a bit of an aversion to them, even though she ate them quite readily when she was a little girl. She was like looking at it very suspiciously, but she did like it. There we go. And then the final thing at the moment I'm going to put in there is the zest of the orange. So I've got one of these microplane devices which are brilliant, but you just have to watch your fingers. So you just sort of do one stroke like that and it just takes off the zest and leaves behind the sort of white pith, if you like, underneath. Oh, it smells so nice now at this point with the orange. There's something about orange and that bit of dried fruit and the spices, it does make it feel really quite festive in some ways, but also, you know, we're not at that point yet in the year, but it just gives you that feel of transitioning, I think, into the more sort of cosy seasons. So just keep going around and get as much of the zest off as you can. That's fine, got most of that off. And then just give that a nice little mix. Oh, it's my oven preheated. And now you see it's looking like carrot cake, isn't it? Okay, so now we need to add the dry ingredients. So back on the scales, I'm going to pop in the flour. Now you can, again, you can sieve this if you want to. I mean, I should really sieve it, shouldn't I? But I'm not, I'm being rebellious. I don't think it really ever makes that much difference. I shouldn't say that, should I? So 175 grams of the flour, just straight in. It's gone to 176, but I'll live with that. And then because I'm using plain flour effectively, I'm going to add my baking powder to make it self-raising. So I need just about, a fairly... Because I mean, just in case you ever want to add a raising agent to spelt flour, I go by, on the back of the bag, there's a recipe for pancakes, which I've made loads of times and they're really good. But it uses 150 grams of the spelt flour and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. So I always go by that measurement. So I've got 175 grams here, so I'm going to use just over a teaspoon. And then that will make it into self-raising flour. That's about right. There we go. Also, this recipe uses a bit of bicarb of soda and it just gives an extra little bit of oomph to the rise. I'm just going to put in about half a teaspoon. The last thing to add are our spices. So if you were making this in the sort of traditional way according to the recipe I'm using, you'd use a teaspoon of cinnamon and half a teaspoon of freshly ground nutmeg. So I'm replacing that with mixed spice. So I've got a little bit left over in my Schwartz. I'm going to use that up and use the other one as well, and we'll see what it tastes like. So how much have I got of the Schwartz? I've probably got about 1/4 of a teaspoon there. So I'm going to pop that in and then we'll top it up with this one, which does smell quite a bit different, I've got to say. Doesn't fit in. We'll give it a go. Can you tell I'm a bit suspicious of the Asdas? But we'll see. So probably about 3/4 maybe. So altogether I've probably got just over a teaspoon of the spices there. So last thing now is just to give that a nice mixy mix. So you can see how easy this is, and I think, children, grandchildren would really enjoy making this. And it's also a good way of getting them to eat a bit of carrot and dried fruit, isn't it? Sneak it into a cake. I'd like a yarn this colour, please, with all of those raisiny flecks in it. That would be lovely. So just give it a good old mix. Make sure you've gone right down to the bottom. So we're all mixed really well. So we can now bring in our tin. We just pour it in. It's quite a loose mix, you can see. Oh, it's lovely. Now, you will probably find, because this is a loose mixture, the raisins will likely, a lot of them will sink to the bottom. That's fine by me, I don't mind that. At the end of the day, they're all in the cake, aren't they, whether they're in the bottom or all the way through. You'll find that some will stay on top, but I did find when I've made this before that they do sink because, they're quite heavy and it's a loose mixture, but don't worry about that. There we go. So now it's just into the oven for about 40-45 minutes until it's risen up. It's a nice sort of golden colour, and when you push down on it, it bounces back up. And you can also, if you want, just pop a skewer into the centre, make sure it comes out clean. So I'm going to pop that into the oven. So there we go. We have got one cake in the oven and cooking away. So come back in part 2 when we're going to, that cake will be out of the oven by then. We're going to get on and we're going to make our Parkin, get that one in the oven, and then by the time we've done that, our carrot cake will be cooled, we can get the icing on, and then when they're both out of the oven, we can sit down and we can try them. So exciting. So I will see you back really soon to make that delicious Parkin.
What a start! It was nearly not just a no-nut carrot cake, it was nearly a no-carrot cake.
I know.
She lost her carrots.
Nearly forgot to tell you about the carrots. It's not that it's essential or anything in the carrot cake.
I love this cake. It's like, I mean, I'd always loved carrot cake, but I think when you take out the richness,
it's delicious.
It just becomes a light, lovely, you're going to find out later on in the show.
Yeah, it's absolutely delicious.
And in part two is the business, because part 2 is when we get into some Parkin.
Parkin.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That is just, talk about seasonal. There's nothing more seasonal for me than Parkin at this time of year. Just gorgeous. We've got some maturing as we speak.
Yes,
that's the way.
We do. The one that I made.
Yes.
That you see me make is currently having its maturing stage.
You're going to find out all about that later on in the show. Because I'm looking at, I mean, I love these socks.
I love these socks too.
So without further ado, I shall say, Kay Jones, what's off your needles?
Okay, so the first thing is a pair of socks. Now, I actually cast these socks on in August. That's quite a long time ago, isn't it? It feels like forever ago. But they are finished now, and it's these ones.
Simply amazing.
Do you remember these? So I've made these using a very deep stash yarn, and it's a yarn that was sent to me by lovely Deb at Fondant Fibre, who is not currently dyeing and hasn't actually for some years, sadly. But this particular yarn, it was dyed specially for me for my Ollivander shawl, which is a 2-colour shawl, obviously based on Harry Potter. And I asked her to dye a colour that reminded her of a phoenix, a Fawkes the Phoenix. So that's what she did, and it's this wonderful mix of pinks and bright yellow, oranges, brown. It's just an absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous colourway. And I think actually it's quite seasonal now, isn't it?
Definitely.
And the Harry Potter link also. Sockawini.
What's so funny about those socks is when I look at those socks, I see the shawl, but it also makes me think of that train journey.
Yes.
So looking at those socks makes me think of getting on the train and getting off at Hogwarts Station.
Yeah, because we went to the station, is it Goathland?
Yes.
Goathland Station that was used in the first film, definitely, and it might have been in the second Harry Potter film, as Hogsmeade Station.
Yeah.
And we went there to take the photos for the shawl. So if you look at the pattern pictures, you'll see the station.
And the funny thing is, the same line was used in the most recent Indiana Jones film.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
When he's on the train.
So yeah, I finished these, and these are just shorty socks for me. This is a slightly thicker base. It's that base that I've been going on and on about recently. It's just 350 metres for 100 grams, so it's sort of edging towards sport weight. I don't think it's fully a sport weight, but what it means is that I can knit a 56 stitch sock using 2.75mm, and I get a great fitting sock.
Beautiful.
And I put in a broken 2x2 rib on these, and you can see, I'll just hold one up, this is a variegated skein, and again I'm back on my variegated horse, aren't I? But you can see here, I mean, I love how it knits up here. You do get a bit of pooling around the gusset because,
Don't we all?
You usually do. But then up here again, it's lovely, isn't it? Oh, it's terrible, isn't it? But I do really like how this is knit up. I think it's really nice. And this is kind of what I need. Just stop.
I'm sorry. I'll stop now.
This is kind of what I want out of a variegated colourway. So, mind thinking again about variegated yarns. But anyway, these are done, and these are going to go into my sock stash.
Beautiful.
So sock stash is our year-long knit-along that we're running for the second year with our patrons, where we just basically knit a bunch of socks and just stash them away for December. So it can either be for gifts or for you. And this is I think it might be 8 or 9 pairs, I'm not sure. I'm going to pull them out for our next pop show, and I'll just have a little assessment of where I am, how many pairs I've got. But yeah, love those. So they're all done.
And a hat.
And I finished the
with the other one.
second angel hat. So I finished the second one, look. All lovely. These colours, these blues, don't quite show up correctly on screen. So this was the first one. You can see the difference now. I think it's useful to hold them together. So the first one was more of a navy blue. Some people said navy blue for them is a really, really dark blue. And it kind of is a really dark blue, but I know what you mean. It's probably not as dark as like a Gansey, for example. You know, that's
like my blue that I'm knitting.
Yeah, that's very dark blue. But, you know, it's a dark blue, isn't it? And then this one's more of a royal blue. You can see the two different colours. So yeah, this is my angel hat pattern, which is a free pattern on Ravelry and Lovecrafts. You can download it. It's designed for an Aran weight, but it would work with a worsted as well. These two yarns I dyed myself on an Aran base, a 2-ply Aran base, but it's not like massively thick, you know. You would definitely sort of liken it to a plump worsted weight. So that's 2 hats all done, ready for our friends when we see them at Christmas. So that'll be lovely, won't it?
Wonderful. Gorgeous, gorgeous projects.
Oh.
And the perfect thing to go with some gorgeous projects is a gorgeous piece of Parkin.
Cup of tea and a nice slice of cake.
So without further ado, I shall pop on my best head and we shall return to the second part of Kay's Classic Bakes.
To part 2 of Kay's Classic Bakes. So our carrot cake is happily cooking away in the oven. It's rising lovely at the moment. So now it's time to get on with our Parkin, which is the second of our recipes. So this recipe is sort of done in a similar way, but not quite. It is a case of kind of just putting everything together, putting it in the oven, but the way that we create it is slightly different. So first thing I need to show you, obviously, is the ingredients for our delicious Parkin. Now, first thing, once again, I've got my white spelt flour. I don't need to go on, do I, about that? I've then got baking powder. Now, the recipe that I'm going to use, which once again is a BBC Good Food recipe, and I've done quite a bit of research into this. I've looked at a lot of different Parkin recipes, and I would say it's a split as to whether people recommend using baking powder or bicarb of soda. I would guess more traditionally it might be bicarb of soda, and the recipe I'm using did suggest using bicarb of soda. And I did that the first time, but in my opinion, there was too much raisin agent. It recommends that you use 2 teaspoons of bicarb of soda. And I did that, and it did that sort of classic thing that can happen to cakes if you've put too much raisin agent in. It rises up, but then it sank down in the middle. So my theory on that was that there was too much raisin agent. So when I've made it again, what I did was I didn't use bicarb, I used baking powder, and I used the amount that I thought was correct. And that's the amount I'm going to tell you, and I've baked it again using that, and it came out perfectly. So, all that being said, I'm going to be using baking powder. Now, we've got the ingredient that's actually different to probably a lot of ginger cakes that you've ever made or eaten before, and that is oatmeal. Traditionally, you would use this, which is medium oatmeal. Now, this can be sometimes a little bit tricky to get hold of, so I have seen lots of recipes that just use porridge oats in replace of the oatmeal. I haven't tried it with porridge oats, but I've seen a lot of recipes that replace it with that. So if you can't find medium oatmeal, I would say give porridge oats a go. We've got several different sorts of sugars going on here. Now, you know, this is not a low-fat recipe. So what we've got is, again, we've got the light muscovado sugar that we used in the carrot cake, but we've also got golden syrup. Oh, yum yum. So golden syrup, I've come to find out, it is produced in the UK. I don't think necessarily it's something that you would find easily elsewhere in the world. and I'm not even sure there's a substitute for golden syrup. So have a shop around. If you're not in the UK, it might be that I know that some shops do stock UK products, so hopefully you'll be able to find this. It isn't like maple syrup. I know that people have asked me that before. Is it similar to maple syrup? No, it's nothing like maple syrup. We've then got another Tate & Lyle product, and this is black treacle. And again, I think this is quite a traditional UK product. This is like, I've never tried, like, is it molasses? I've never tried that, but I kind of think this would be similar to molasses. So black treacle, essential really for this recipe. We've then got butter, and I'm just going to use my favourite Country Life butter. It's salted. If you want to use non-salted, that's fine. I've got 3 tablespoons of milk in this little bowl, and nearly dropped it. I've got 1 egg. And then finally, we've got ginger. Now this recipe, it does use quite a lot of ginger. So it uses 2 kind of heaped teaspoons of ginger, which is quite a lot, and it does have a real punch of ginger. What we do with this cake, and I haven't mentioned this yet actually, is it needs to mature. This is the key thing with Parkin. Now, I think you could eat this as a pudding warm from the oven with like cream or custard. Absolutely lovely. But traditionally what you do is you let it cool, you then wrap it in greaseproof paper and you store it for like 3 days to a week. And what happens is it gets stickier as that time goes on, and it just, you know, all the flavours come out and it just becomes absolutely delicious. And then to make it in, this one's a bit different. We need a saucepan and we need our tin. Now this is a bigger tin, this is a bigger cake. This is 23 centimetres square. It's a square tin again, because these cakes traditionally, I think, just look better in squares. So this is 23 centimetres square, and again I've lined it as I've done the other one, just with foil. Okay, so I've got my saucepan here, and into the saucepan what I'm going to put in here are these ingredients here. So it's my 2 syrups, so we've got the treacle and the golden syrup, butter and the sugar. All of that is going to go into my pan and then going to melt it. So I'm going to heat it up until everything's all melted, and then everything else goes into that. So I'm going to start with the butter. It uses quite a lot of butter. It's 200 grams. So I just pop it in. I know that it's going to be pretty much all of this. There we go. So we've just got that little bit left there. We'll now do the sugar. So it's 85 grams of the light muscovado. As I just weigh this in, oh, we're nearly there. 86. I will tell you that for this cake, it's a longer bake, slightly longer bake than the carrot cake, and the oven's a bit lower. So you want your oven on 150 degrees C if it's a fan, 160 if it's not a fan, I would say. Okay, so that's our sugar. So golden syrup, so 175 grams of golden syrup. So we just squeeze this fabulous ingredient in. Okay. And now the treacle. I've seen a lot of people recommend ways of getting treacle out of the tin in an easier way, like the spoon to heat it up. So if you have like a cup of hot water, just keep your spoon in that for a while, then into the treacle, and it should just slide off. Or if you coat it in oil, the spoon again into it and then in the pan. To be honest, I kind of like the wrangling of the black treacle. I think it's sort of fun, so I'm just going to go with it. So we need 100 grams of black treacle. So what I do is I just take a normal sort of dessert spoon and I dip it in and then pull out a big, oh look at that, and then if you spin it quickly like that, it's all on the spoon, look. And then hold it over and just use another little spoon to ease it off. Look at that. Oh my gosh. It should be illegal, shouldn't it really? It's so amazing. And then you can judge how much that was. So that's just about near enough 50 grams. So I know if I do that again, yeah, look, that's 52. So if I just do a little bit less than I did that time, we should be about right. And then I use the lid to put things, because it really is really sticky. Get it all off the spoon. And then to wash this off, I know this is a random fact, but if you have some hot soapy water in your sink ready, I just dump everything straight in it that's got any sort of, oh, that's 102. Can I live with 102? Let's go with that, because I'm not going to try and get that back out. But yeah, hot soapy water, and I just take that straight over to the sink, put them in, and it'll just come off, no problem. So all of that now in the pan. So I'm going to take this over to the stove, I'm going to heat it up, and we're going to melt all of those ingredients together. Okay, so here we are, that's all melted and just looking fabulous. Now my alarm just went off to tell me that the carrot cake should be done, so I'm just going to go and check on that to see how that's doing. I'm just going to give it 5 more minutes. It's had 40 minutes, so I'm just going to give it 5 more minutes. Okay, so we've got our delicious mixture here. So now, let me just pop that over there actually. So we need to just mix up our dry ingredients. So I've got just a little bowl here. So we're going to start with the flour. So we need 250 grams of flour. Oh, 253, wow, that toppled in really quick, didn't it? I need a spoon. There we go. Oh, 251. Okay, we'll go with it. So that's our flour in there. Now I'm going to put in the baking powder. So I'm going to put in 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. So that's 1.5. And I found that that's worked really well. We then want to pop in our oatmeal. So it's 100 grams of oatmeal. There we go. And our ginger. So this is ground ginger, and I'm going to be using 2 quite generous teaspoons. So nice and rounded, because this does want to have a real punchy ginger hit. So I'm just going to amalgamate those together, just with a fork. And again, you can, I mean, if you want to, you can sieve the flour. I'm just going to mix them together so that we've got that baking powder distributed through, and our spice as well is going all the way through. And then in my little bowl here, I've got those 3 tablespoons of milk, and I've popped in my egg. So when I've given this a little mix, I'm just going to beat those 2 together. Whoops. So it's just a case of adding our dry ingredients into this gorgeous mixture. Oh my goodness. So just topple all of your dry ingredients in, and then give it a nice mix. Now I do just use a spoon for this. So you can see now that's all coming together. It won't ever look smooth because that's all the oatmeal that you can see there. So what I'm now going to do actually is just going to get my spatula, because I just want to make sure that everything is really well mixed. So just a little interlude. Our carrot cake is now done and looking delicious. So I'm just going to set that to cool for 5 minutes in the tin, and then I will then lift it out of the tin and just set it on a wire rack to cool completely. Back to our parking. So I'm just going to go in with my spatula, because I just want to make sure that I get everything off the bottom and that it's really well mixed, which that is, and smells fabulous. So the last thing to do is to pour in the egg and milk. Now at this point when you start mixing, it will look a bit unappealing, okay? But just keep going, it will mix in. You don't have to use a spatula for this, you could just use a whisk or whatever, but I just like a spatula because I can just get into all the nooks and crannies. So I've turned my oven down to 150 because this one is a bit lower and a bit slower. So it wants to bake for about 50 to 55 minutes. And because, again, just keep an eye on it, because it's a dark coloured mixture, it can be quite difficult to tell if it starts to catch. So just keep an eye on it when you get to the sort of 45-minute mark. Same thing really, it wants to have, it doesn't rise up loads because it's not intended to sort of rise up loads, but it will rise. But it won't have, a massive domed top or anything like that. But again, it will be slightly bouncy. And then the surface of it, you will find, will be a little bit sort of, crusty is the wrong word. But if you sort of scrape your fingernail over the top of it, you will be able to hear it. And that's how it should be. Bringing our tin, and we're just going to pour it in. So get it all out, we don't want to waste any of this delicious mixture. Oh, I've made a real sticky mess. It's all over my hands, everybody. That's okay. There we go. Ooh. So that's now going to go into our oven for, like I said, about 50 to 55 minutes at 150 degrees C, if that's a fan. Is about maybe 20 minutes away from being done in the oven, but our carrot cake is cool enough now to pop on the icing, so we're going to do that. So what I've got here is my beautiful cake, and doesn't it look just lovely? It smells amazing, I've got to say. Oh my goodness, it smells so good. So what I've got here is I've just juiced half of that orange that we used the zest of just into a little bowl, and I've got some icing sugar. So we're just going to make it would have traditionally been called a water icing, that's what I know it as, but instead of water we're going to use orange juice, and that will just kind of enhance that orange zest that we put into the cake. So it's just icing sugar and orange juice, and that's all it is. So the recipe actually used quite a lot of this icing. I'm going to use a bit less. I'm going to put about 100 grams of icing sugar into a little bowl. There we go, 100. Okay. And then we're just going to mix in a bit of the orange juice until we get a consistency that will be good for kind of drizzling all over the top. So I'm just going to use a teaspoon for this because you need surprisingly little. If you were making this with water, I know when I've made this a million times with Bryony, you have a tendency just to pour a load in, but then you'll discover that actually, you need to add in a ton more icing sugar to make it the right consistency. And it does colour it does give it a nice kind of slightly peach colour, which is lovely. Kind of goes with the theme, doesn't it? And it also, I think using orange juice can sort of cut through the sweetness of the icing sugar just a little bit. So now it's at this stage that I just add tiny bits because it can just like go really runny in a second. I love the colour it makes. I don't know if that's coming across, but it is like a really soft peach colour. Oh, and it smells so good. So you can just sort of lift a bit and just check. See, that's quite good now, isn't it? That's a nice consistency. So all I'm going to do, very kind of unartfully, I'm just going to drizzle that way and then drizzle that way. You can do whatever you want. I mean, you could put an entire layer on if you wanted and cover it completely so you couldn't see the cake. But I just think it looks kind of nice just to have a little drizzle. And when you cut it as well, just to have a square with a little sort of, what artist was it that did that? Was it Jackson Pollock, that did paintings like that? So I'm just gonna grab some. So I tend to sort of start off the cake in a corner like this, and then you can just go back and forth.
when you run out, just get a bit more. And I start off because then you don't get a big blob. And you can sort of put as little or as much on as you like. I'm going to go back the other way. Just make a little crisscrossy thing. Can you see all the excess is sort of dribbling down here, so you're not making too much of a mess. There we go, I think that's really pretty. And we didn't use all of that, but there we go. And now what will happen, I know we've got sort of excess icing down here, but once that's fully set, you can lift your cake off it and the icing will just stay in there because it'll be set. So there we go, that's our carrot cake looking completely beautiful and all ready for eating. So what we need to do, of course, is get the Parkin out of the oven. But if you remember from earlier, I said that Parkin has to mature. So of course, in the style of every good Blue Peter presenter, I've made one 3 days ago that we're going to try. So we'll be able to experience the kind of transition from that freshly made cake. So we need to make ourselves a cup of tea, don't we? We need to sit down, we need to cut these delicious cakes, and we need to get to the trying.
What a way to finish the series.
I know.
2 gorgeous cakes.
Got ourselves a little cake picnic.
I mean, thank you so much for making this Parkin, because
You're very welcome.
It completely, if anything transports me back, it's this. I know earlier on in the episode today you mentioned about jacket potatoes and being outside.
Yeah.
Literally every November the 5th, outside, jacket potato, piece of Parkin in the hand, and also a piece of flapjack in the other.
Oh yeah.
Bite of that, bite of that.
Yeah.
Both of those are quite heavy, and what's lovely is this is super light.
No, so yeah, we've got our Parkin, so we need to have a little piece
Well,
of...
can we start with the Parkin
Let's
first?
start with the Parkin.
Let's have some Parkin. That's so lovely.
It's delicious, isn't it?
There's a warmth,
There's a definite warmth, it's very gingery.
but also a real sweetness. It's so seasonal.
It's really good. The ginger kind of hits you after, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It like kind of grows.
Imagine this stood outside in the cold. That's just such a blast from the past.
It's lovely. And I never had Parkin growing up. It's funny, isn't it? I mean, I think it is a Yorkshire thing, isn't it? But I never had it that I can recall.
Can we have some carrot cake?
Yes. Shall I just... You stab yourself a piece. Or you're just going to pick it up. These are quite big pieces.
Yes, but what I love about this is it's so light. That is completely spectacular.
It's fabulous, isn't it?
Oh my goodness.
I love that.
Now, I think everyone,
It's so delicious.
most people will have had a carrot cake with walnuts in it.
Yes.
With that.
With the cream cheese frosting.
Up until you made this, I'd never had one like this before.
No. I think it's so much nicer.
It is so much nicer because it doesn't feel anywhere near as rich.
No.
So, end of a really spectacular series. What were your highlights, do you think?
This cake.
I mean, it's hot cross bun loaf.
Doesn't this sort of remind you of that a little bit?
Loads of the same flavours. And to be honest with you, I don't think that around this time of year I probably wouldn't reach for hot cross bun loaf. Those individual lemon meringue pies were rather...
They were excellent.
I mean, like, they were so rich though, I needed to lie down afterwards.
Yeah, they were really rich.
But this, absolutely... I always know when it's a good cake, because I eat one
You've
slice.
gone. And you can have another bit.
No, I can't, because now at 49...
49 now.
I now need to be careful.
Nearly 50.
All right.
I'm very much looking forward to next year.
What a wonderful series, thank you so much.
No, thank you for eating all the things that I made.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for inviting me on this time.
So there we go. That's the last 2 bakes of this season's Kay's Classic Bakes.
And I really hope you've enjoyed it. It's been fabulous, obviously, for us because we've got to eat all of these fantastic cakes, which is just wonderful. But I really hope you've enjoyed watching, and if you've made some of the cakes, I hope you've enjoyed eating them as well. It's just been fantastic. So I will see you back, I'm sure, very soon with more bakes and classic bakes and kitchen goings on. But in the meantime, you can always find a full list of all of my baking shows on our website. So thank you all again for joining me for this season of Kay's Classic Bakes.
The end to a wonderful series. That Parkin is just warming, filling,
yummy,
just deliciousness. And you can't beat a cake which gets better the longer you leave it.
Yes.
That's what I call
It's a great one for, if you're planning ahead.
Yeah.
If you've got people coming around on bonfire night or Halloween or whatever, make it the week before, stash it away. Perfect.
And perfect combination to go with that carrot cake, because the carrot cake, light as air, as light as Madeline's from Freddie Prinze Jr. in Friends, as I said. I mean, just absolutely perfection. Now, here's a question, because we went on about this. Could we taste a difference with that mixed spice? I don't know.
I'd have to have another piece.
But I think the only way you'd know is by having a piece with all Schwartz and a piece with all... Wasn't offensive.
No. It was perfectly fine, but I can taste the difference, yes.
Right.
I sound like Sainsbury's, don't I?
Yeah, but in the negative sense.
Yeah. There's definitely a difference. They smell completely different.
They did.
The Schwartz one has got a much sweeter smell.
And some will be here on Thursday.
Thank you. Dan's ordered me some from Ocado.
Thank you very much, caller.
Thank you.
But wonderful series and just the most wonderful year, really. And, this will always be... I was looking at because we're now deep into planning for 2025. Deep into music selection.
Yes, yes.
More of that to come later on in the year. And I happened to notice a date in January, and I thought it was something that had been pre-populated. You know how in diaries now you get dates that are put in and you're like, what's that? And it's something that the computer has added. It said Journey Day. Yes.
I know what it is.
So do I. Because partway, as you know, this year we discovered Journey, and I was able to identify the day, the specific day we discovered Journey.
Well, you did,
yes.
I should say, and then you told me.
And I marked it in the diary as a yearly annual event. And it's coming up in February next year.
January, wasn't it?
January next year. He's forgotten it
Doesn't
already.
Even know.
Whenever it is, it's in the diary, so it's fine. So this year will always be the year of Journey and always be the year of Kay's Classic Bakes and that hot cross bun loaf.
Yes,
Nearly called it a cake again.
I'm going to have to make it.
No, it's fine. Not this time of year. It's an Easter thing.
Yes.
Yeah, it would be wrong at this time of year. It would just be wrong.
So you wouldn't eat it. If I made one, you would not eat it. Is that what you're saying?
Having hot cross bun cake now would be like wearing purple now. Wrong.
Jen's going to be having you, I tell you.
Right, that is the end of Kay's Classic Bakes, and next time it's time for the end of England, a Castle Nation.
Yes.
And if you're looking for a dramatic, exciting finale, don't miss the next episode. It's going to be spectacular.
Don't be sad about all these endings, though. I'm always excited about things ending because it means something new and exciting is coming along.
And it is.
So don't be,
It is.
We can't say.
We can't. But honestly,
we've had lots of high-powered meetings, haven't we, lately?
Yes. Okay, look, it's time for the Endy Bits.
Yes, Endy Bits.
Kay has some yarn.
So, I said before I'd got some self-striping yarn, and I think I mentioned this last time, didn't I, that I'd managed to get a spot in the Freckled Whimsy clubs that she's been running this year. She's had a Halloween club running all year and a Christmas club running all year, and I managed to get a spot on both of them. Now, the Christmas one has now finished. I think she's just sent out the last one of those, so I haven't got that yet. But the Christmas one is finished. The Halloween one, I think, is carrying on for a few more months. So that's exciting. But I got these two lovely yarns.
Wow. Gorgeous.
So I got this purpley green one. This is the Halloweeny one, and it's called Spooky Town, which is very cool. I love these labels, these holographic labels. Oh, I love that. And then the Christmassy one is called You, Me and the Christmas Tree, which is adorable, adorbs. And it's this sort of tealy sort of blue, and there's red and pink and brown. Oh, just gorgeous. And I've got these on the Splendid base, which is the base I've been dyeing on all year, the 8515. I love this base. It's soft, it's plump, it's gorgeous. So yeah, I got those two, which is very exciting. So I'll have one more of the two together, and then I think it'll just be Halloween after that for a few months. So that's very exciting. And then the other thing I wanted to just mention is I said last time about our Sockaween event that we do have some prizes. Now, I have spoke about the prizes on our last pop show, but I'm aware that some people might have missed that. So what we're doing for the prizes this year is really quite special. We've got 2 yarn prizes and 3 pattern prizes. Now, the pattern prizes, it will be a new pattern release of mine because I've got a design coming out mid-November, and it's the Yuletide scarf. I've shown it to you a few times as I've been working on it this year, and that will be coming out mid-November. So 3 people will win that pattern, which is exciting, and then the other 2, there's yarn prizes. So I've got these wrapped up, and there's a reason. One of them is here, so purple. Sorry, Jen, should have wrapped it in orange paper, but anyway. So this one, first of all, I can show you what is inside that because it's enough yarn to make this. It's the same yarn exactly. Do you remember this? That was a cardigan. Do you remember? And it became a wrap. Well, I'm going to publish this as a platinum design for next year. Oh, it's lovely and seasonal, isn't it? Oh, look at that. Hang on, let's get it round properly. Yeah, so it's this gorgeous wrap, look. Isn't it a great colour? So there's enough yarn in here, plus 1 extra ball actually, just in case the person wanted to make it a bit longer, of this yarn. So that's 1 prize. Don't have to make this, of course. You can do whatever you want with the yarn, you know. I'm not a yarn police person. But then in this parcel, another mysteriously wrapped parcel, in here is the exact yarn that I've used this year for my Advent design, for our Advent calendar. So what I'm going to do with this is, because I want to make sure whoever gets this gets it in time for the 1st of December. So Sockaween ends at the end of October. When I close that thread a day or 2 later, I'm going to contact the person who wins this straight away because we don't have a show until like a good 10 days after, and I don't want to leave it that long. So I will contact the person straight away. Whoever wins this, get their mailing details and get it sent off to them straight away, just so I know that they're going to get it in time. So yeah, very exciting prizes for Sockaween this year.
Wonderful. What a show it's been. Oh my goodness. I can't wait for all the wonderful things, the prizes, and it's going to be just marvellous. Yeah. And also as well, I can't wait for the next episode because yes, it's time for the end. The
end of your series.
Of England, a Castle Nation.
Yes.
So folks, thank you so much for watching. It's been wonderful to see you.
It's been fantastic.
Remember, I said if you want more honeymoon action, then go and listen to our radio show that's already out.
Not sure what to say about that.
Radio show will be back next week, and we'll be back the week after. We're back in 2 weeks with a brand new episode of the video show. So take care, everyone, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon, everybody.
Bye.
Sitting and knitting, standing the bakery prayers. Enthusiasm's not quitting, pretending the bakery bears. They'll take you to fabulous places of which their favorites they'll share. You better buy a pattern and get yourself a bakery bear. You'll find yourself in a castle while watching the bakery bears. It never feels like a hassle to sit and watch the bakery bears. What's on your shelf or what's in